It was 2006, maybe closer to 2007. I was in this big Renaissance era of reading. I was consuming novel after novel. I read all of the Harry Potter books that had been released up to that point. I read all of the series of unfortunate events. I was reading Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I read some King Arthur books. I was reading Artemis Fowl. I was all over the place. And then I saw on the shelves a book with a dragon on it. A book called Aragon. So I immediately picked it up. I picked this up and I consumed it. You could see by how banged up the book is. I consumed this novel. I read it, and then I read it again. I picked up Eldest. I picked up the third of Brisinger, and then I picked up the fourth one, which I can't remember at the moment. I think Inheritance, maybe? It's called The Inheritance Cycle. 4 novels in the series. Paolini was fantastic. There's a way that he wrote his books that took you on an adventure. In the span of a single novel, a lot of things happened, and yet it feels like you're spending quite a lot of time in each location that he takes you to. You get to read quite a bit of dialogue, you get to get inside the heads of the characters. It's like this sensation of being on a journey that takes you from place to place to place. The building of the world as you're going there. You're learning about the world as you're visiting these places. You learn about the dwarves when you reach the dwarven settlements. You learn about the Varden when you reach Duwelden Varden. You learn about all of these things and more. About the dragons, about the dragon riders, and everything. There's this way that Paolini roped you in that immediately consumed me, man. It influenced my world building. It influenced the way I wanted to write fantasy, the way I wanted to write stories, the way I wanted to introduce characters, the way I wanted to take you on a journey. I was influenced very strongly by Aragon. The movie wasn't that great. The video game wasn't based off the movie, which also wasn't that great. But the books are fantastic. If you're going to remake the Dragon Aragon, definitely you should do that. You really should remake Aragon and do it justice this time, because that movie just doesn't do the book justice. This book deserves another chance. It deserves another shot. And then, of course, years and years and years later, we get the 5th installment in this franchise, Murtagh. Now, this is a trade paperback version. I'm not exactly very keen on trade paperbacks. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, I prefer the mass market paperbacks just for the small ability of it. They're smaller novels. You can see I can fit the whole thing on the screen. This book is too big to fit on the screen completely. The pages are a lot bigger. You can fit more on the pages, and this one has smaller fonts. You can't fit as much on the pages. If they spread this out to be the size of a trade paperback, instead of being this thick, it would probably be about that thick instead, because you can fit more on the page. So it depends on your preference. My preference is more of the trade paperbacks, mass market paperbacks versus the trade paperbacks. But I like the trade paperbacks if that's all you have available to you. I prefer hard copies. So if I had to choose between a trade paperback and an ebook, I'm going to pick the trade paperback if I have to. It's probably just the thing that's going in style. Mass market's leaving style. I get it. It's fine, whatever. I'm just glad to have these books, you know. And speaking of finally reading Murtagh is fantastic. It is fantastic. The Aragon books keep you in the perspective of Aragon and sometimes his cousin Roran. You rarely, if ever, change the perspectives of any other character. You primarily stay in the perspective of these characters, and that's something that I kind of actually really liked about these books. is that you learn about the world through the perspective of limited characters. So these other characters, you rarely ever get into their heads. Like, you wouldn't have a whole story set from Arya's perspective, because that would probably defeat the purpose of her mysteriousness. You learn about Arya through how Eragon views Arya. You don't really get to see Arya's perspective through Arya herself, which is fine. I actually liked that a lot. It's difficult, too, because the perspectives, like, you can't really get into the heads of the other characters. You can't really learn as much as you could learn about everybody by keeping it to one perspective. So if you're wanting to consume everything that you possibly can, it might be frustrating, because this character could be very ignorant of all of these other characters. You want to learn more about those characters, but the character that's your perspective as, they don't know too much about them. But that's also part of the charm. It's irritating and charming at the same time. I like and can get a little bit irritated at it at the same time. But it's fine. It's just a style of writing and a preference. And I completely respect him for this preference. Sometimes you would change perspectives, though. Like when we have the second book, Eldest, you would go from Eragon to Roran's perspective. Roran, Eragon's cousin. And you'd have quite a bit of stuff from Roran's perspective. In Murtagh, there are no perspective changes. There's no secondary protagonist. It's just Murtagh. You are with him from page 1 to page finish. It is solely from his perspective. So when he's left in the dark about something, you, the reader, are left in the dark about something. That kind of just does intensify the mystery as well, and I do like that, because the more information that he uncovers, you're learning for the first time as well. As he solves the mystery, you are learning and solving it yourself. You might have some ideas of who these characters are. Then when finally this information is revealed to him, you go like, oh, maybe I was wrong about that. Or, oh, I knew it. I was right. It's fantastic. I say fantastic a lot, but I mean it in every sense of the word. This novel is fantastic. Without spoiling too much, the core concepts, if I'm going to give it some words, just simple single words, not sentences, just words to say what could describe this book, it would be soul-searching, control, freedom. Control and freedom, especially, those two are very interesting facets in there. Kind of like contradicting in a way, but it depends on what control idea, what area of control you're talking about. If it's control in which somebody else has control over you, then yeah, that's antithetical to the control that I'm talking about. The control that I'm talking about is synonymous with freedom. Being in control of yourself, of your life, of your choices, of all of the things you wish to do, being in control of whatever step you take on your journey, being in control of your decisions and being responsible for them as well. Murtagh is all about that. He feels guilt, insanely strong guilt from what happened in the inheritance cycle, but he wasn't in control of his actions, not entirely, but he still feels guilt over those actions. He feels like he should have fought stronger instead of being broken with oaths and all that stuff, binding oaths of fealty, like these types of oaths of fealty that Murtagh was forced to swear in the inheritance cycle to the villain. He could not break it. It was like mind control. It was like puppet master strings. He was like a puppet with the King Galbatorix controlling him like puppet strings. It was a very tough time, and we get to actually see into the psyche of this character and of the Dragon Thorn as well. We get to see into the psyche of these two characters and get to see just how tortured they are and how strong their desire for freedom and control of their lives. They wish to wrest control from everybody over them and just keep it for themselves, being in control of their decisions, their actions, where they go in life, and being responsible for them as well. It's very moving. It was a very personal story to me in a way that Eragon kind of didn't really ring to me with. I like Eragon in the sort of like a hero's journey type of character, type of story. Eragon very much feels like it was inspired by Star Wars. It really does. It feels like it was inspired strongly by Star Wars. But Murtagh I don't see any Star Wars in here. I just see a very personal story, a very personal character study that I really liked. I liked the villain in this. I liked the journey. He went from place to place to place, and he still has it in him, Pauline. He still has that concept of a journey, that sense that you are with this character over the course of months, and it feels like it's taken months to reach the end of the story, to reach the end of the journey. It is a fantastic story that, if you've read the Inheritance Cycle, even if you just read the first Eragon book, read the rest of the Eragon books and then read Murtagh. You could read Murtagh without reading many of the Inheritance Cycle books, but a lot of things in the Inheritance Cycle are mentioned in Murtagh. A lot of events are mentioned, and while they may explain what these events are, they will not really mean that much to you. It will mean to you about the same as if you watched an episode of television in like season 3 of a TV show that carries on the story. Like, say you're watching Supernatural, and you started watching Supernatural in season 3. Well, they'll mention story events from seasons 1 and 2, but you won't learn about the deal that Dean had to make until he mentions it. They'll mention the deal that Dean made with a Crossroads demon. They'll mention it over and over, but you won't have that personal connection to it from having seen those episodes leading up to that story. The road trip that the two brothers went on during the first 2 seasons, you will have missed that. It won't feel as personal to you. So while you'll know the information, you'll have the information of what happened, it won't feel as personal to you. So while you can read Murtagh without reading Eragon, I strongly suggest you read the Inheritance Cycle, all 4 novels, before you read Murtagh. It will just feel that more impactful, that much more impactful when you learn about the events and the stuff that they mentioned that happened in the Inheritance Cycle. Definitely give it a read. It's a fantastic fantasy story.